Hey guys, welcome to the Daily Word Bible Study, a plain and simple, book by book, chapter by chapter, and verse by verse study of the entire Bible. Currently, we're in Job chapter 40, talking about God's response. And what's kind of interesting is Job had asked for this inadvertently. He was talking to his friends, and he said, why won't God talk to me? I want to lay my case before God. I want to explain, lay out, my point of view. So God shows up. And basically, God says, okay, we can talk, Job, but I want to ask you some questions first. And kind of, in a sense, it's that, let me get your resume. In other words, I'm just not going to talk to anyone, but I want to talk to you. So that we're on the same level here. And of course, they never will get to that. God began to ask him a series of questions. Like, where were you when I made the earth? So right there kind of ends Job's point of view. Or it ends what he thinks, what case he has. And I say this because the bulk of Job, 90% of the book of Job is from a human perspective. So we all can relate to this because, especially when we have questions, whether it's in adversity or even just, when we're at a crossroads of life, crossroads of faith. And so, one of the questions is that people will ask about, well, why, you put the why, then ... Why God? Why did you allow this, God? Why did evil happen, God? Why this, whatever? I keep thinking about this one foolish minister who claims that he changed his theology because he saw Africa, people in Africa, these, just scores of starving people, destitute people, and then according to him, he's like, oh God, why are you sending them to hell? And of course, he goes on to invent a kind of stuff that, well, God spoke to me. Okay, but his idea was he later would then say that, over time, I forgave God. He actually made that statement. Well, my point is that it's easy to be in this kind of foolishness when God is not around. So there's two things. Job just happened to have a face-to-face to God a lot earlier than most of us will ever have. But make no mistake that all of us eventually will have the face-to-face to God. Usually after our death or upon our death. Okay. And of course, so this I could tell you right now will be all of our reactions. In other words, when we come face to face with God, we haven't got to Job's reaction yet. He's already reacting to this. We're going to see this here later in the study. And then in the close of the study, we're going to see Job's response. And it is nothing, of course, like what he was boasting about to his friends, that I would lay my case out before God if God was here. Right? Well, God is now talking. God is now talking. Oh, that's not what I'm looking at. Wrong thing here. All right. All right. So, chapter 40, verse 1 says, the Lord answered Job, will the one who contends with the Almighty correct him? Let him who argues with God give an answer. In other words, okay. Verse 3, then Job answered the Lord. Right? Now, remember, God's been talking. Now he's kind of like, I don't hear you, Job. Answer. Verse 4, I am so insignificant. How can I answer you? I place my hand over my mouth. I have spoken once, and I will now reply twice. But now I can add nothing. Right? Is that suffice for God? Nope. Verse 6, then the Lord answered Job from a whirlwind, get ready to answer me like a man. When I question you, you will inform me. Right? He said, no, Job, not through. Not through at all. Verse 8. Would you really challenge my justice? Would you declare me guilty to justify yourself? Do you have an arm like God's? Can you thunder with a voice like his? Now, you ever heard the phrase people use, can't your arm's too short to box with God or something like that? Well, here's where they get this from. Verse 10, adorn yourself with majesty and splendor. Clothe yourself with honor and glory. Unleash your raging anger. Look upon every proud person and humiliate him. Now remember, God is like, I need this before we can go on and talk. Before I justify myself to you, I want to bring you up to my level. So far, Job is unable to rise to God's level. He says, verse 12, look upon every proud person and humble him. Trample the wicked where they stand. Hide them together in the dust, imprison them in the grave. Then I will confess to you that your own right hand can deliver you. In other words, let's come up to my level here, so we can be on the same level, playing level field here, Job. Now, I want you to notice that so far, God has not explained himself to Job. Not once. He did not, in other words, God is like, before I explain myself to you, come on, you got to be up here. This is not even a fair comparison. It'd be like, I'm thinking about my 2-year-old grandchild, right? When she acts out. I don't explain to her, come on, I want you to understand, even though sometimes their parents do. But I digress. But you see, you got two different levels here. So God says, I will confess to you that your own right hand can deliver you. Then he says, look at Behemoth, which I made along with you. Now, kind of interesting, this Behemoth, okay? It is not for sure who or what Behemoth is. It is some kind of, I don't know what, I don't know what to say. It is big, powerful. Some people kind of think of it as one of the big dinosaurs with the long neck. We'll see this in a moment. What I want you to pay attention to is when he says, look at Behemoth, which I made along with you. Now the you, then we would have to conclude mankind, or the time of mankind, which would be interesting. He said, he eats grass like an ox. Look at the strength of his loins and the power of his muscles of his belly. He stiffens his tail like a cedar tree. The tendons of his thighs are woven firmly together. His bones are bronze tubes. His limbs are like iron rods. He is the foremost of God's works. Only his maker can draw the sword against him. Now, I want to stop, besides the fact that my big screen is freezing up again. I want to be careful here because, again, we don't know what this creature is. In other words, we don't know exactly how, if this creature is even exists today. Now, there's going to be two of them that he's going to talk about here. Okay. And again, some people read this as dinosaurs or one of the dinosaurs. You know, like the one you see on the Sinclair gas stations. Well, I'm sorry, some of you all that's not old enough. Um, but again, it's just interesting. He said that he made them along with that. All right. Verse 20. The hills yield food for him, while all sorts of wild animals play there. He lies under a lotus plant, hiding in the protection of marshy reeds. Lotus plants cover him with their shade. The willow by the brook surround him. Through the river rages. Behemoth is unafraid. He remains confident, even even if the Jordan surges up to his mouth. Can anyone capture him while he looks on, or pierce his nose with snares? I'm sorry. Um, Then he goes on and he said this, chapter 41, verse 1 says, can you pull in Leviathan with a hook, or tie his tongue down with a rope? Can you put a cord through his nose, or pierce his jaw with a hook? Will he beg you for mercy, or speak softly to you? Will he make a covenant with you so that you can take him as a slave forever? Can you play with him like a bird, or put him on a leash for your girls? Some people will try. Will traders bargain for him or divide him among the merchants? Can you fill his hide with harpoons, or his head with fishing spears? Now, let me just stop here, and then when we look at Leviathan, now he seems to be some kind of sea creature. Now, again, here we don't know if this creature is still in existence. Okay, we don't know if he's in existence or not. But he is some kind of sea monster that is, of course, he's not a whale because of the description of his skin. So at best, you would say that it could be, think of an alligator, okay? But this is, he's not an alligator, but huge, okay? Huge. So look at God's description of him. Like I say, we don't know if he's still in existence or not. Okay? Verse 8, lay a hand on him. You will remember the battle and never repeat it. You ever hear this statement people say, well, they know they've been in a fight. And that is true there. Verse 9, any hope of capturing him proves false. Does the person not collapse at the very sight of him? No one is ferocious enough to rouse Leviathan, who then can stand against me. Now, so the question is, if you can't capture him, how are you going to stand against me? Who confronted me that I should repay him? Everything under heaven belongs to me. Now, right here, I think sums it up. Right here. All of God's explanation to Job. It sums it up. Who can stand against me? I want to linger there for a moment. I'm going to come out of this because I may end this. Because remember God's explanation or lack thereof. In other words, he never explains himself to Job here. He basically, in a sense, says, hey, if you want to contend with me, if you want to confront me, then be on my level. So if I'll talk to you, right? I'll explain to you if you're on my level. So then he begins to ask Job a series of questions that Job said, I can't answer. when he then says to Job, "Are you really going to justify me?" Now that's interesting in that, remember, God says that Job, I'm going to let you destroy Job. He is righteous. He ensures evil, and he shuns away evil. So then the question becomes, can we lay a charge against God? Can we say about God that he is unjust? So Job asked the question to his friends. Job made the case that I'm just. I don't understand why I'm suffering. So now God is saying to him, okay, I'll talk to you, but you show me. So the idea about God's justice, how do you define that? Well, first and foremost, anything that we use, and this is always funny because the atheists use not an atheist thought, an argument against God, but a Christian thought against God. Now think about that. In other words, so anything, and the reason why is because remember, when we kind of go back to this creation, one of the things that is interesting here is that God is the one. And remember, everything starts with God. Everything starts with God. He created everything, and then he created everything with the mentality, with the emotions. Now, you remember he said, well, I didn't give the ostrich wisdom. I gave this animal wisdom, and sometimes you'll see that. You see a wisdom, for example, sometimes watching a raccoon, which I hate. They're very smart creatures. Raccoons are not. The other creatures are just animalistic. Well, God created them that way. So why is man of the mentality that he is? Because God created him that way. So in other words, all things, everything that's created is created by God, is God's. So is God unjust for doing whatever he wants to his creation? Now, as I said before, we oftentimes think that God is absent. In reality, he's not absent at all. We're going to see that when we get to the book of Daniel. How that God rules in the kingdoms of men. That's another example of that. We just kind of think he's like, oh my God, this just happened, and God was like, what? This happened? Oh my God, all this Ukraine thing snuck up on us. Jesus, what happened? Right? No. If it happened because God allowed it to happen. We just can't explain everything. But in God's mind, God does have a sovereign plan to it. And Job is finding that out. That I really stuck my foot in it all the way. I just didn't stick my foot into it, but we're up to the kneecaps at this point. All right, guys, don't forget to like and share this video and subscribe to BP the Bible, Perspective. And as always, if you have a thought, a comment, add it to the comments section below. All comments are welcome. I'll see you in the next study.